Good morning. I bring you greetings from the St. Paul's Women's Retreat that has been happening this weekend at Roslyn. We had a beautiful worship service this morning in that lovely chapel overlooking the James, and we prayed for all of you. Several months ago, my parents came to visit. My children dutifully carried their bags up to the guest room. And just as I thought that we would sit down to catch up, my mother said, "Wait, there's more." The next thing I knew, 8 big boxes were sitting in my foyer. My mother explained that she and my father had been cleaning out their storage unit, which had been housing some of my grandmother's things since she died. They had forgotten that there was an extra set of china in there, and my mother thought that maybe I could use it. The boxes contained every kind of dish you can imagine, as well as seemingly endless cups and saucers. I love to cook and I love to entertain, but I am more of a pottery girl, and I have never once used cups and saucers. I should also add that this is not the first set of my grandmother's china that I have inherited. It isn't even the second. It is the third, and it is ugly. In today's gospel story, Jesus is approached by someone in the crowd who is having an issue with his brother about family inheritance. I like to imagine that they were debating who was going to take the ugly china. Jesus responds by warning against greed, and then, as he so often does, he answers the question with a parable, this one known as the parable of the rich fool. The rich fool is, in fact, a successful farmer. His land produces so abundantly that he makes a plan to build bigger barns so that he can store his crops and then relax, eat, drink, and be merry. I have to say that I relate to this man. For one thing, I now need more space to store that china. And like him, I also am thinking about saving for the future. My spouse and I are putting money in our children's college accounts and our respective retirement accounts. This, we've been taught, is the responsible thing to do. And our goal is not only to provide basic necessities for ourselves and for our family, but also to anticipate enjoying our next chapter of life. So needless to say, God's words to the farmer at the end of the parable, giving him that unflattering title of rich fool, leave me squirming. In order to understand the parable and the point that Jesus is trying to make, it is important to consider what it is exactly that makes the rich man foolish. It appears that he was a wise and responsible businessman. The text does not suggest that he made his money by unjust means. Honestly, he seems like the kind of person you might want as your financial planner in today's world. His fault, it appears, does not lie in his wealth itself, but in the way that he understands it. The rich man believes that he can secure his life in his possession of worldly goods. He puts his trust in his things rather than in God. Furthermore, he fails to consider and honor the people and circumstances that contributed to his abundance. God created that land that provided food to its inhabitants. The text doesn't tell us specifics, but presumably some level of privilege allowed him to own that land. Surely there were workers who farmed the land and harvested the crops. And most likely he had a wife at home who ran the household and allowed him to focus on building his business. And yet, He speaks only to himself. Listen again to his words. I will do this. I will pull down my barns and build larger ones, and there I will store my grain and my goods. I will say to my soul, soul, you have ample goods laid up for many years. These singular pronouns, I, me, my, dominate the story. There is no expression of gratitude to God or to others. There is no thought of engaging his family or his community in a conversation about how to use this abundance. And though he has more grains and goods in storage than he could possibly need, there is no mention of sharing that bounty with others. These are the things that provoke God to call him a fool. So what do we, as modern-day hearers, make of this story? First, I think it is a warning about the timeless human propensity for greed. Those of us with privilege and perhaps an abundance of possessions are especially at risk of feeling like enough is never enough, like we must hoard more and more to be secure. Today's parable reminds us that amassing wealth can turn our focus towards ourselves rather than being what New Testament scholar Audrey West calls rich toward God and rich toward our neighbors. The parable is also a testament to what faithful stewardship looks like. Aside from savings, it must be a larger consideration of how we use our resources, a consideration that includes our Creator and our community. Faithful stewardship demands that we use our privilege to glorify God, to care for those who are poor or marginalized, and to seek economic justice. In the coming weeks, you'll see that this continues to be a theme throughout the Gospel of Luke, who repeatedly reminds us of the dangers of wealth. You might remember a saying that was around on billboards and bumper stickers a number of years ago. It said, "He who dies with the most toys wins." This was the mindset of the rich fool in today's parable. The more I have, the better off I'll be. But Jesus tells us that just the opposite is true. God says to that man, "This very night your life is being demanded of you, and the things you have prepared, whose will they be?" The message is clear. Winning comes not in an abundance of possessions or in a hefty savings account, but in an abundance of trust in God. Like the man in the parable, we may have more stuff than we need. China, anyone? We may be saving responsibly for the future. But what matters is that unlike that man, we live with gratitude and generosity to our Creator and to our neighbors, knowing that ultimately it is God who provides and it is God who saves. Amen.